Hi everyone, it's Backslayer. I probably should be keeping an eye on all of this, but I'm not. See, I don't usually use this screen. It's, I don't know, might edit some of that. I don't know. It seems to work alright even though it doesn't show up that it's working alright. So, it's Friday afternoon. I'm a little bit early. I'm not due to start for another half a minute or so. And if you're wondering what I'm playing with, it's just a little Smurf. I love my Smurfs. So, I was talking to someone yesterday, and was it yesterday? Yeah, probably yesterday. And things got a little bit, well, I got my knickers in a twist, let's put it that way. Not because of what he'd said, it wasn't anything to do with me, it was on behalf of someone else. And what had happened was a friend of his had gotten an email from his wife, saying, the company says we can't do this in our house because the young guy was supposed to be going there to spend the weekend, and he says, this might change, he said, I might not be able to stay there because the company said, the company's got no say over their private residence, and the way that the conversation unfolded, this doesn't sound right. But of course, instead of saying, how about you check with him to see what the email actually said, I kind of went off left field and, sort of did the usual response where, well, no, you've got property rights and somebody else can't tell you what you can do in your own home unless you're renting said home. And some of the things that they don't want you to do is like have pets in your home because, they don't trust that you won't have 5 Rottweilers chewing the walls, that kind of thing. But it made me think about all the times when I've spoken to people and they are up in arms and really angry and they want to sue and they want to do all sorts of things. And then they only tell you what the missive is that they've received. It's a letter, it's an email, it's something in writing, and they're just going off saying it's not right, that they can't do this to me, how dare they do this to me. And then you sort of think nobody would be that stupid, especially not a company. A company would not be so stupid as to overstep the bounds, And then I think, oh, well, actually, they often do. So you kind of leave it there and you think, well, yeah, maybe they do. So I eventually remember to ask for them to show me the actual document. Show me where it says. Show me. And then you read it, and what they're up in arms about isn't actually what has happened. And sometimes this is really like Chinese whispers. Do you remember playing Chinese whispers where you'd be in a line? We used to do it in school as a school activity every year. So the teacher would tell the first kid in line something, would say a sentence, and the kid would say that to the next kid, but had to whisper. And it just kind of went a bit skew-whiff. By the time it got to the last kid, the message was nothing like it was supposed to have been. It just wasn't anywhere near, the original meaning. And sometimes that's what it's like when people come to you and say, oh, geez, so-and-so said such and such, and it's totally out of line. And it also happens a lot in the law. It happens a lot just generally. Happens a lot when, people just talk to me, And happens a lot on Facebook where you'll see somebody post something like, somebody posted that the government has now banned Australians from flying overseas until 2024. It's an absolute ban. We can't leave the island. And so well, that doesn't sound right because, I haven't seen anything other than this one official looking post. And then you chase it up. And it's an economics forum or something had a discussion about it and sort of said international travel won't return to normal until 2024. So it's kind of apples and oranges. It's the only thing they've got in common is it's a fruit. It's like, okay. So, and I mean, Facebook is my favourite place to see think about the children panic, because it's everywhere and people no longer have the capacity to think about whether something is a real thing, whether it's official or if it's someone, taking the piss. The Chaser boys are renowned for it. They do setups that look so real, and and this line, it's so fine that the other day when the government put out an ad about how to get consent, and I can't even, it was the banana or something. It was a really weird video. A milkshake. It was a milkshake. And this whole thing is such a mess, and I'm there, I don't even know what they're trying to tell kids about consent, because it's really weird. They'd be more interested in, having a cute girl pour a milkshake over them, and it was just really weird. And the Chaser boys came out and they said, swear to God, it wasn't us. We did not do that. That's not our pretend ad. It's a real ad. Wasn't us. And you sort of think, oh, okay, no problem. Sounds a bit rough. So there's a lot of websites like the Tudor Advocate. If you're not an Aussie, they are really cool, these things. Like the Batuta Advocate stories. They'll take something that was in the news and they'll put a twist to it. And sometimes the twists are delicious. I should really find you one. But yeah, maybe not right now. I don't know. I'm going to see if I can Google it on the other side and just show you the kind of stories that they do. And then people actually go off because they think this is real. Okay. So I find it really, really interesting. I remember back in, must have been mid to late 70s, we still had Malcolm Fraser as the Prime Minister. I think it was the Women's Weekly, or one of the magazines was due to come out on the 1st of April. And they did this story that because Australia's now gone over to metric, the Prime Minister has announced that clocks are going to go metric. So instead of 60 minutes, we're going to have 100 minutes. So no longer 60 seconds in a minute, it's going to be 100 seconds in a minute, and then 100 minutes in an hour. And then, oh God, I cannot remember what they said was happening about the 24-hour day, but it freaked a lot of people out. They went off. It was like, it was priceless. And we can't do those things anymore. We can't have a really good go at April Fool's jokes anymore because people just don't understand anymore. We've lost our sense of humour. It's really sad. So, okay. I'll just see if I can... Let me pull this one over. So I found one. I found the page. So if you ever want to look up and, read some stuff. Okay. Okay. This one. Sounds promising. So, woman lends RFS a hand with back burning and tosses her durry out the window. So, that sounds promising. So, Wendell Hussey wrote it. He's a cadet at the Batuta Advocate. In a touching performance of civic duty, a local woman has decided to take time out of her busy schedule to help prevent another summer of awful bushfires. Rochelle Hawkins, 29, performed the selfless act last night on the way home from her job in the Old City District, earning the thanks of our local volunteer firefighters. Commuting out to her Batuta Plains residence, the local woman decided to toss her finished, but not completely finished durry out the window into the nice dry autumn channel country grass. The young lady who does something at a computer with money in return for money explained to the Advocate today that it was the least she could do. My father-in-law is a volunteer in the fire service, and he said that they are flat out trying to get on top of back burning, so I just thought I'd give them a hand. She laughed about the grass fire caused by failing to bin her butt. I don't like leaving the finished ciggies in my car anyway. They stink my car up. So why not give our local fireys a hand with vegetation control and get rid of my still smouldering dart at the same time, she laughed. Good land management practice by me, really. The local fire brigade were unavailable for comment at the time of print, believed to have been out getting on top of an escalating blaze on the Batuta Plains. More to come. So it sounds like, the kind of reporting you'd get, but there's a couple of hints in there that this isn't a real story. But would people get it? I don't know. Now, the politics ones are always really cool. Okay. This one here. States ask PM to lend them Tamil family detention facilities to help with quarantine effort. Can I just say I'm embarrassed to be under the governance of one Scotty from marketing. It's an embarrassment what they do with refugees. It's like, oh, for God's sake, people, just get it sorted, get it done. Anyway, state governments have today publicly demanded the Prime Minister do more to help with the quarantine effort. After handballing the vast majority of responsibility for quarantine to the states, and under the Australian Constitution, it's actually a federal matter, they have now asked the nation's leader to let them use Commonwealth facilities that are sitting idle. West Australian Premier Mark McGowan has led the charge, today requesting that facilities like Christmas Island and Yonga Hill Immigration Detention Centre be used for their purpose of holding people who have just landed in the country. And, the story goes on and, it just makes it sound like this is something that Mark McGowan actually did. He said, instead of criticising us for, our pitiful hotels that can't seem to do the quarantining right, why don't we send them all to Christmas Island to quarantine? Because, we've got facilities there. But, of course, it didn't happen. But if I were to post this on Facebook in one of the groups where I know there's a few serious people with no sense of humour, I reckon I'd get a bite or two, or 50, maybe even 100, because people just take everything at face value. They don't look behind it. I mean, if you sort of read it, and take the blame off my government for failing to adhere to reports that our hotel quarantine system had serious flaws, which caused the latest outbreak here in Perth. Because Mark McGowan has been blamed for that. And it's like, I'm not surprised people can't pick the difference. It just doesn't surprise me. It's just everywhere. It's like, and then you get these cool ones, and I won't read this one, I'll just let you read it yourself. I'm sure you can. But it's like, you know, this is the kind of thing that we talk about. And, you know, a young man who some would argue doesn't belong in the Qantas Club has walked into the Remenko Memorial Aerodrome branch and laid eyes on chef turned celebrity chef Curtis Stone sitting in one of the armchairs. And then it goes on. And the reason I sort of bring that up is because it used to be we had to play, as children, we had to go out and we had to find Chinese whispers. And now we have to remember that Chinese whispers exist. And what we're hearing is probably not the truth. And it's such a sad indictment on how we look at the world, how we consume news, how we think about life. Let me just stop this here from annoying me. Tells me I've got to collect all the collectibles on this map. But, you know, what can we do about it? And I mean, I'm pretty sure anybody who finds my channel, yeah, I know nothing about you at all. I know nothing about you. Cannot pretend to know anything about you. So, would you be one of the people that I'm calling out? Well, I'm one of the people I'm calling out. I do it. Sometimes you read a story and, you know, everybody's already commented and it seems to be legit because everybody's talking about it and all of my friends are commenting and saying, you know, this is unreal. How dare they? And then it takes me like a minute to really think about it. And when I say a minute, I don't mean a 60-second or 100-second minute. I mean, yeah, sometimes it takes me quite a while. And then I'll start to do a bit of a Google search and I have a look around and I think, yeah, I've got played again. Shit. That's not good. But there you go. We all do it. I'm sure we all do it. I now have a 30-second rule. I really have to stop myself before I go off on Facebook about something. As you can see, I've got my game in the background and it's the Settlers. I quite like it. And they did an announcement that they've redone the test server. And I thought, I'll check out the test server. And every time I get on the test server, it always goes the global chat, which is down here. You sort of click that. And you can't see because my face is there, but this is the chat. And there's global chat. And then, you know, you can do other chats and private chats and, you know, talk to people. This is the reason I still play the game. The game sometimes feels more like a job than actually entertaining. I'm trying to level up and I've almost done it. I don't have far to go. Only just over 5.5 million experience points and I'll be there. But, and how much time do I have? Oh, I've got 14 hours on one. Oh, 12 hours. Probably won't make it. But I play the game because of the chat. And then I thought, oh yeah, because they were playing on Flash and, you know, with Flash going out, they weren't quite ready to change over to the Unity server. And so yesterday I tried out the test server, and this morning when I went into it, they're all talking German again in global. And then they start telling everybody who's speaking English to basically bugger off, but they don't tell us how. And even though I've been playing the game for a long time, I don't know how to access the help in the chat. I don't know how to do that. And finally, after hurling abuse around at everybody who didn't speak German in it, and I can speak and write German. I am a native-born German who is now a proud Australian citizen, but geez, they annoyed me. Just the whole attitude, this is our global, you know, you can all bugger off. And then they weren't helpful in helping people to find their language server. And eventually somebody actually figured out what the hell I was saying, which I wasn't saying in German. You know? they were all responding in English, and so they, multilingual, and it's like, So eventually I found my way to the English global, and I'm thinking, I probably shouldn't have gone off. I probably should have stuck to the, an hour before you comment, because I think they just annoyed me in the way that they were expressing their thoughts. I tend to be very reactive. That's why most times I sort of do the whole physically step back before I do anything. I don't send emails in haste. I have to think about how I word them, and even then they're misunderstood, and I don't know where the breakdown in communication comes from. I've had people say to me, I don't know what you meant by that. And I've been very clear with what I've said. I said, I need to do XYZ because ABC. And they come back with, I don't know what you want and why you want it. What's your problem? And it's like, did you read the email? I mean, did you really read it? Or I had an argument once with my now deceased stepfather-in-law, and my dad used to argue all the time. I mean, if I say I was taught to argue on my dad's knee, that's what I mean. He argued all the time. If he went to a party, it was not a good party unless he had a lot of arguments, and the bigger and bolder the argument, the more fun he had. And I married a man who doesn't like to argue, which is kind of, good. It's good. But, I mean, he thinks that, I need to go out and argue for a living because apparently I'm good at it. But I I really enjoyed this whole, you argue a point. And my stepfather-in-law, he always argued. He was very similar to my dad, but he was always right. Everybody else was always wrong. And then this one time he said something, and I know what he was trying to say, but it is not what he said. He said something different. So I sort of started arguing with him, and he never corrected himself on his first misstatement. And all of the arguments that he brought forward, he was right on. And I'd say, yeah, well, that's all fine and good, and it's true. But when, your argument was, and you were wrong. And he never picked up, because he was so busy being upset that I was arguing back, that he didn't think about what I'd actually said. And I kept giving him the hints that all you have to say is, so I said it wrong. If I say it this way, am I right? And I would have said, yep, you're right, not a problem. And the argument would have been over. It wasn't a screaming match. It was just a back and forth. Nowadays, you'd sort of say it was a normal discussion. Back then, we called that an argument. Nowadays, arguments are screaming matches, which aren't really good. But in the end, he sort of threw his hands up in the air and he said, you know what, I'm done. I can't win against you. I know I'm right, but I'm giving you the win. And I'm like, so we're not going to keep talking then? He said, no, we're done. And it's the only time he ever conceded an argument. He never, ever conceded an argument. And I'm there, well, look, I'll take the win, but just for the record, I know what you were trying to say, and had you said it correctly, you would have been, would not have had an argument from me. But you said it the wrong way. What you said was, and I quoted back to him what he'd said, and he looked at me like, really? Like, really? And it wasn't quite as pedantic as the grammar and spelling Nazis on Facebook. It wasn't level of pedantic. It was a significant difference on what was going on. So, he missed all of the clues when I was telling him what I thought and why I thought he was wrong. He missed the clue that, maybe he just needed to do the restatement. And a couple of times he said it again, but he said it the wrong way again. So, was he just missing the point? Yeah. And we all do it. I mean, I sometimes sit back after rereading something for the third time and I'll say, I missed that the other 2 times. How could I have missed it? It's so obvious now. But we're always distracted by other things, and I've noticed that the world is getting busier. It used to be we had very few distractions. I remember growing up, we only sometimes had a telephone at home. We didn't always have a phone. You definitely didn't have your personal phone in my household. While in America they had personal computers, we didn't. I mean, where I was living, we didn't even know that computers were already a thing that could be personal. It was really weird. And as time goes on, there are so many more distractions, and you've got to respond to this, you've got to respond to that. You're keeping busy all the time doing nothing. And in that busyness, I think we forget to take the time to actually absorb the message, to really think about what's been said and how to respond. And that's all fine and good if it's your mate telling you, about the party they went to 2 weeks ago, and, this woman who was all over her husband, and oh my God, she's going to belt the crap out of her. And you sort of, you tune out because, her husband wouldn't ever dream of stepping out, or at least as far as And, the woman tries it on with everybody because that's just how she is. It's not a serious thing. So you tune out some of it, and you might miss something really important. And we do that. Sometimes we do that. We've got so many things to worry about. At the moment, I've got so many things that are up in the air that it's really hard for me to sometimes just sort of say, you know what, I'm not doing this. Like, it might seem that I play this game all the time, and if you ask any of the guild members, they'll say, oh, she's logged in all night long, because they're all in England, so it's then. They know that sometimes I'm logged in 24 hours a day, and I sort of log out a little bit and log back in. But I'm not actually at the computer, and while I've got the game up, I'm not doing other things on the computer. So it's sort of a way of me stopping myself from spending too much time sitting here on the computer. I couldn't spend any time on the computer for about a week and a bit. And even now, if I sit in this chair, it gets quite painful. That's why I do the fidgeting at the moment. I don't usually fidget this much. But how do we get back to paying attention to what's being said to us? And we don't seem to know the consequences of what happens if we don't listen at really critically important times. It bothers me. It really does, because I've seen people get themselves into so much trouble because they've overreacted to something that wasn't an issue. It was a non-starter. And had they read the letter properly, had they read the email properly, had they not taken somebody else's word for something that was said, the issue wouldn't have arisen. I see people go off all the time about weird and wonderful things, and you're sort of there, but it wasn't an issue. That's not what happened. I try not to get into Facebook arguments anymore, because you're on a loser, because you can never win an argument, because people never like to admit they're wrong. I did a tweet once, and someone pulled me up on it and said, actually, you're wrong on that, because this is actually a place and this is actually what happened. And I said, oh, I've just Googled that, and oh my God, you're right. And oh, I feel so stupid now. I'm so sorry I got that wrong. I owe apologies all around. He got back to me and he said, I've never, ever had anybody come back at me saying, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong, you were right, and, let me apologise. And it's like, well, there you go. But we don't like to. Nobody likes to, apologise. So instead of going off and admitting we're wrong, nobody ever admits they're wrong. And I know I do, but I don't like to. It's embarrassing. It is. It's bloody embarrassing. But I think we need to figure out how we're going to do this communicating stuff. I mean, I'm not one to keep picking on people for spelling mistakes and that. But sometimes when you have mangled words so much that nobody can figure out which word you mean, and then that's in a sentence of 17 words to which we can't figure out which word you mean. So we know that you've said something, and we know that you think it's important enough to say because you've actually bothered typing it in there. And we know you're trying to put words together because looking at the keyboard, you weren't just, your hand position hadn't moved, so you weren't just hitting the wrong keys. I think it makes it hard to communicate. It makes it really hard to understand what the other person's position is. And one of my frustrations, I hate getting into the middle of a Facebook argument, which is going really well. I love a good Facebook argument. You watch people go off and it's all exciting. I scroll through that and I think, oh, this is so great. And then you'll get the comments that seem a bit disjointed, or they're aimed at someone and you can't find the comment that they're responding to, and it gets really frustrating. And then someone else come back with something else and they've got a hold of the wrong end of the stick too, because people aren't clear about who they're responding to and what they're saying, and sometimes you don't know which side of the fence they've fallen down on. And they're not fence sitters, so they've got an opinion, they're sharing their opinion, but you don't really understand their opinion. You don't know how it relates to what's going on. And there seems to be a lot more of that now. I think all of the good Facebook arguers, all of the shit stirrers, they've all left. I think they've all moved on. They said, oh, this is too hard. Or maybe they've all been banned permanently. I don't know. But it just, I don't know. I find I self-edit a lot. I really do. And then, because now I think a little bit different, and I try to word things so that if I'm making a benign statement, I don't want people to get offended by it, and someone's going to read it the wrong way if I leave out a word, and every time they do. I did a Facebook post on my wall for Anzac Day, and if anybody knows anything about me, it's when I was growing up, you know what? We didn't have a shortage of female role models. My mum's friends were working. My school friends' mums were working. The teachers were married women with children. At the mines, everybody was working. We had prime ministers that were women around the world. We had female role models, and we had for years. And, when I was taught about Marie Curie, the teacher said, and don't think that she's the only one. Women have done this stuff since time immemorial. Just because some husbands didn't like it didn't mean it didn't happen. Just because society frowned on it. That's sometimes that's our opinion of it because, the church was a bit stronger and they said, whatever. But women were always there. So I didn't have this, and women stayed at home and weren't ever involved in anything. And I knew about all of the women that have been involved in every war effort since the year dot. I mean, women have always been there. And, they weren't in subservient roles. I mean, oh, God, just don't come at me with that. So I did this post, and it was about, because we had the 3-day lockdown over the Anzac Day weekend, we ended up doing the driveway service again. And I don't go to the Anzac Day services because, my family's German. We were on the other side. But for the driveway services, I'm there, you know what, I can go out there and I can do this, and I will do it. And last year, there were a few neighbours out on the verge. This year, Oliver being the puppy, and I were the only ones out. And Oliver was so well behaved. He had no idea what was going on, but he just sat quietly the whole time. Absolutely blown away by that I am. And one of the neighbours across the golf course estate, I think, had a really good stereo and played the last post and the service. And that sort of echoed around the neighbourhood. It was really nice. But it was only me and the puppy. So when I got inside after the service, I sort of did this post. And I said, I finished it off by saying, it's become obvious that our freedoms that were so hard fought for, they can go just like that if we're not looking out for it. I mean, even our government is overstepping the mark on, telling us what we can and can't do. And, there's too much government interference, in my opinion. And I said, I finished it off by saying, there are too many young men who died for our freedom. But it was freaking 6:15 in the freaking morning. It was a sentiment I was expressing, and of course you get one in every crowd. First comment was, and don't forget the women. And I sort of, he did a bit more of a comment, and then I sort of said, well, that's all fine and good, but just in case you're wondering, I was raised first 10 years in Germany, where we lived. Across the house from us was the other side of the road, and then behind that the forest started, and you didn't have to go far into that forest to come across the helmets and the old boots and the abandoned rifles, and I mean, some of this stuff had bullet holes in it, no word of a lie. That's where the fighting was in the Second World War, and even when I was there, years later, all of the stuff was still there. And I think they're still finding shit in there now. It was really close, and my mum and dad told us the stories of when they were children in the war. So for me, it was a lived experience, and, for me, I've always accepted that men and women were in there together all the time. So I kind of commented on that, and then he came back with, well, I wanted to pay my respects to the women too. And I'm thinking, well, you could have done that on your own Facebook wall and not had started this argument with me. It's just, you could have just scrolled on by and said, I'll do a better one on my Facebook wall. Could have. But anyway, doesn't matter. I have lots of people on my Facebook who I've met online through Facebook groups and that, and, you get to chatting, or, you follow them on YouTube and whatever else they do. And, you sort of end up friending them on Facebook. But it's really weird how, are we a bit slacker with the way that we talk? Are we not quite onto it? I don't know. It seems that we're not really as careful. And I mean, I've read some legal letters where you think, no one knows what you're talking about, but you won't get sued for it either, because if anybody can take offence, they'll have a hard time proving which bit was offensive, because it's all so plain and benign, and, you know, exclusion clauses or running all through it. But, I don't know, it's getting tougher to do the whole communicating with people, and I like to think that I speak English, but sometimes I doubt my English speaking skills, because people look at me like, what did you just say? It's like, well, actually, what I said was, and then, oh, really? Oh, okay. And they still don't understand what I've said, so it's like, and I don't like using the long, convoluted words all the time. Sometimes I really relish it, but most of the time I just speak, you know, normal English. But I don't know. I mean, lately my speech has been, oh, who's a good boy then? Oh, that's a good boy. Oh, I love you, baby. And it's always talking to the dog. Must learn communication skills again. Maybe that's where they've gone. Maybe being in lockdown and not being able to go out and speak to adults has done it. I mean, we haven't been in lockdown, but I chose to lock down because peopling is hard. It's not much fun. Anyway, that's my Friday night rant. You know, I like to go to the source if I can. I don't like Chinese whispers because I always get myself in trouble. Always. It's not good. It is not a good thing. And I don't know what to do about it. I have to think about it. Maybe I'll just go onto an island, you know, settle an island on my own. Yeah, I don't think so. You know, I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. If you've got any hints, like, what can I do? How can I communicate better? Because I'm pretty sure a fair bit of it's me. And it's, have you ever thought about writing something and you say, ooh, that's not very clear, so I'll clarify it, and then I'll do this, and that'll clarify it, and oh, that's a bit long-winded, so they'll get lost in the story, so I'll take this away and I'll take that away. And you have edited something, and what you really want is, okay, I'll see you at the cinema, at the front door, or, you know, inside foyer of the cinema at 3:30 on Friday. And so, people that still miss it. But not my friends. My friends are good. Yeah, they're pretty good. So I should really go and do something on the game, but I think I'm just going to cook some tea. That's the plan. So I'm hoping to, you know, get some feedback soonish on all of this. Yeah, I've got a bit of work coming up over the weekend. Yay! So that'll keep me out of trouble. And it'll mean that I'll have something a bit more legal to talk about on Tuesday when I'm back. So have a great weekend. Hope you have some fun. That's if you find it today. Otherwise, if you find it on a Tuesday, and I wish you a happy weekend, are you going to be offended? Yeah, I don't think so either. Anyway, have a great time. I'll catch you later. I'm going to stop streaming.